Hi, welcome to the Knitting Expat Podcast. This is episode 66, and my name is Mina. I'll be your host today. I'm coming to you from my home in Bahrain, where I live with my husband and our two cats. And one of them may be coming to join me very soon. And if you're a regular viewer of the podcast, then you'll know that it's going to be Hugo. Derek's usually sleeping at this time. He's our other cat. And on that note, thank you. If you are a returning viewer, I really appreciate you coming back. And if you're new, thank you so much for taking the time to check me out. I really, really appreciate that you do that, that people actually take the time to hang out with me. And I think Hugo's trying to decide what he's going to do. You going to come up here? Come on. There you go. And so this is Hugo. And we'll see how long he hangs around for. Then I have a slightly new setup today. I've actually set up my tripod to hold up my phone. I have a little attachment for it. So fingers crossed this goes well. What was I going to say? Oh, places you can find me. That might be handy. I'll probably bring them up on the screen, and if I forget, they'll be in the description box on YouTube and wherever you can find this video. I am Mina86 on Ravelry. There's a podcast group There is a group for the podcast on Ravelry called Knitting Expat Podcast. The show notes are at knittingexpat.wordpress.com, and I am Mina Phillip on Instagram. But like I said, everything's linked down below and everywhere else that you can find me. After I mentioned last week about my adventures with iced tea, or trying to figure out iced tea, I was inundated with comments and suggestions from people on different ways of making iced tea. A few were suggesting the whole, you steep the tea bags in boiling water for a lot longer and then you top it up with cold water, or you use less water to boil it. A variety of versions of that method, which I tried already, and I wasn't too convinced or satisfied with that method. Then someone suggested trying sun tea, which is where you just leave the tea bags in water out in the sunshine to let the sun do the brewing for you. And I did that. I didn't have a jug at the time, so I just put it in a big bowl, and I did cover the bowl. I put a picture on Instagram, and I realised it didn't look like the bowl was covered, but the bowl was covered in cling film. So I didn't want any bugs or sand or anything to get in there. So I did that, and I left it out there for 4 hours, and that bowl was really hot. Like, I almost needed to get some oven mitts to carry that bowl back in. It was so hot. And the water inside was really hot as well. And that was definitely a stronger flavour. But I still wasn't too keen on it. Like, it may have just been the tea, to be honest. But once I posted the picture to Instagram, a few people commented, including Josh, who's sort of a knitter on Instagram. He does a sort of a knitter podcast, and he's a big tea drinker. And he also commented that sun tea can also be an issue with regards to bacteria growth. So with that in mind, I didn't try it again. I thought, okay, fine. And he suggested trying cold brew, which is where you just put the tea bags in water and stick it in the fridge and leave it in there for overnight or for a few hours to brew in the fridge in cold water. And there are a couple of advantages to that. One, you don't have the bacteria risk with sun tea that you have with sun tea. And the second one is you can reuse the tea bags because they haven't been heated, so the leaves haven't been damaged by heat, so you can reuse the tea bags. So that's what I've been trying for the last few days, and so far it's been pretty successful. I did go out last weekend. I did get a jug. I brought it out to show you today, but this fits quite nicely in my fridge door. It takes just less than 1.5 litres in this. We buy bottled water, which I'll explain why in a second, but we buy bottled water, so they come in 1.5 litre bottles, so I just about fill. There's always a little bit left at the end of the bottle, so almost 1.5 litres, and this at the moment has 3 tea bags of Moroccan mint and 2 of a decaf lemon tea. So it's a lemon mint sort of tea, although it tastes more mint than lemon, so I probably should have put a couple more lemon tea bags in. But it's quite nice, it's quite refreshing. It's definitely got that minty flavour to it, which is quite nice and refreshing. And yeah, it's great. It's why all I do is I set it up the afternoon before, leave it in the fridge overnight, and then in the morning I have iced tea. I don't add any sugar or sweetener or anything to this at the moment, and it doesn't need ice or anything because it's straight out of the fridge. And then once I finish, I usually drink through the jug in a day, and then once it's empty, I just top it up with more water and stick it back in the fridge overnight. And then I tend to reuse the tea bags a couple of times. So this is the first time I've tried it with this combination. For the last few days, I've been using a vanilla caramel tea by Bigelow. I think I had 3 or 4 tea bags in, and again, I just kept topping up the water, and that went pretty well. But yeah, I'm experimenting, and I have a couple of questions about that later in this podcast episode. Sorry, I didn't mean to ramble on so long about tea right at the beginning. I normally try and just stick with knitting stuff first, but moving on, I have a couple of other little announcements before we get into it. The first one is that I'm hoping to start to bring in a few new things to the podcast and to the channel in general on YouTube over the next few months. I'm still working out the details for how that's going to work and what that's going to be exactly, but it's all good. Don't worry. And these extra things will probably end up being either incorporated into the podcast or uploaded as separate videos depending on what they end up being. But I will hopefully be able to share more information as and when I figure out what those things will be and I start figuring out the logistics and start to put some of these things into motion. So you can stay tuned for that. Then we have some coupon codes for you guys. So we have one from Debbie, who's from the Never Cast Off crew, the podcast, and her code is KEP30, and that gives you 30% off any of her patterns in her Ravelry shop until the 30th of June. And then we also have Heidi, who has the Packing Knits design shop on Etsy, and the coupon code EXPAT16 in capitals gives you 16% off your order until the 30th of June. So make sure you check those out. I will have links and everything in the show notes and in the episode thread for you guys to those shops. And then, yeah, okay, finally on to the knitting. 7 minutes in and we're finally into the knitting. Okay, so first things first, I have a pair of socks off the needles. Yay! These are my Doctor Who, Vincent and Doctor is the colourway. Doctor Who inspired yarn, which I believe there's a knit along going on for at the moment, so I need to enter these into that. But so the yarn is by the Yarn Tree, and it's in the Vincent and the Doctor colourway. And yeah, I really love how these knit up. These are the ones where I had the stitches falling off the needles in the cinema that I had to pick up and fix drop stitches and all of that jazz. Not fun, but I did it, it's fine. And I also realised that my gauge was quite a bit looser in this section, which is when I was knitting in the cinema the first time. And so you can really see the difference between this portion on both of the socks compared to the rest of the sock when my gauge was a bit tighter and back to my normal sort of knitting gauge. So I thought that was quite interesting. But the advantage of knitting your socks 2 at a time is if you ever do have any variations in gauge, it matches on both socks. So both socks have that weird, crazy, flashy, pooly section at the same part, on the same part of the sock, so it doesn't look weird. But I don't really care about that stuff. That sort of thing doesn't really bother me at all. And the yarn washed up really nicely. I don't believe it bled. I can't remember, which probably means it didn't. And it was really, really fun. This is one of my oldest, out of some older stash. It's over a year old. So it was older stash for me. Or some of my oldest stash, actually. So it was one of the first skeins of hand-dyed yarn I ever bought. So yeah, that was quite a special pair of socks to be knitting up. And I knit this up. I knit the first leg during one cinema session, and I knit the foot in another cinema session. So these are cinema socks. Then take these off. I also did a little mini sock. Thought it was really quite cute. I've been wanting to try making mini socks for a while now, and I just never got around to it. I just did a little braided tie thingy to hang them up with. But that was really cute. I just cast on 32 stitches, knit a bit for the leg, did some ribbing at the top, knit a bit for the leg, did a fish lip skis heel, and knit a bit for doing a star toe decrease, just because Kitchenerring on something that's tiny is not worth it. Just nice and fun. So the socks and the little mini sock were knit on 2.25mm needles, and I just used my vanilla sock pattern that's available on Ravelry. The next pair of socks, I love them, but This is one of those instances where knitting does a super stealthy sneak attack and you just don't even notice until it's too late. So, first I'll just tell you about the yarn and everything, and then I will tell you about the super sneaky stealth sneak attack. Super stealthy sneak attack. I keep getting the words jumbled. So, this yarn is absolutely gorgeous. I love this yarn. It's stunning. Beautiful colours. Love the colours, obviously. Purples, greens, blues. Very me. And it is by Deanna, who does the Skeins in Schools podcast. And she dyes yarn as swatchless fibre arts on Etsy. Look at that. And so this is one of my new designs, which will be part of my Beyond Vanilla Socks Part 2 collection, which will be coming out hopefully sometime this summer. Haven't set a date for that yet. And it's a BFL base. This is a 80/20 BFL nylon base. It's really lovely, really nice to knit with. And I really love how these knit up. And these were knit up on 2.5mm US 1.5s Addy turbos. So, I don't know if you can see. Can you tell? I'm not sure if you can tell, but this is what a German short row heel looks like. Okay? Hugo, this is not the time. Right, you want to go that way? That's fine. This is not what a German short row heel should look like. I'm not sure if you can even tell still. Oh, Hugo, your tail. Can you see that yet? Can you see it? Take it off the blocker and show you, because this will be so much more obvious. So, this is the point, and this is the narrow tip at the top of at the back of a heel. That's what it should look like. That is not what it should look like. I don't know how, but when I knit the second heel, I must have put the work down halfway through the heel, came back to it and thought I had done the heel and I was doing the other half of the heel. Because you know you work the first half and you're reducing stitches by doing the short rows, and then you increase your stitches again to build back up to your original stitch count to then knit back in the round. That's generally how a short row heel works. So I must have put it down a few rows into the short rows and then came back and thought I had finished the decreasing and had started increasing again and just carried on and finished it. And I am left with a very, very shallow heel. So left with a very shallow heel, and I didn't notice until I had bound off and woven in the ends, and I was just like, oh my god, what have I done? I couldn't even believe it. I couldn't understand how I had managed to do that after, this is pair number 60 that I've knit this year. 60 pairs of socks, and I make a mistake. Like, it's such a stupid mistake as well. This is so ridiculous, and I'm so surprised I didn't notice it sooner. I mean, it looks weird when it's not on the... I mean, it doesn't look so bad because it was blocked on a blocker. But it's just very odd. And I don't know how I managed that. And I don't know how I managed to not notice it either. Yeah. I don't know what went wrong or why, but it did. And so yeah. I'm not ripping it back. No, I am very much of the mind that nah, when it's done, it's done. And to be honest, I put it on my foot and it fits fine, surprisingly. It doesn't stretch too weird. I think the difference is as well, because I knit these on 2.5mm needles, they're not as tight as my socks usually are. So it's fine. It doesn't actually look too bad when I've got them on my feet. I just still can't believe I did that. The heel is like not even half as deep as it should be. As they say, stuff happens, and roll with it. That's what I'm doing, is rolling with it. So when your knitting does a super sneaky stealth attack, just go with it. Okay, so those are my 2 sock projects that I've finished. My third work in finished object, not work in progress. My brain is not quite screwed in. Is the one that I'm wearing, and this is the shawl that I knit for my sister-in-law, and this is my husband's sister, not my brother's future wife. But someone commented thinking that the shawl was for my brother's fiance. My brother doesn't have a fiance, so no, this is for my sister-in-law, who's my husband's sister. And so this was knit out of the Wool Barn, out of her silky single space in the pink pearl colourway. And yeah, this is the right side. It doesn't really matter, it is a garter stitch based shawl, so it doesn't really matter right side or wrong side. And that was the whole point, because she's going to be wearing this on her wedding day. I don't want her to have to be worrying about whether she's got the shawl on the right side or not. So she can wear it either way around. There is subtle differences, which I'll show you in a second, but nothing major that makes a huge difference. It blocks out, absolutely huge. This is what I am calling the medium size in the pattern. It uses 130 grams. So I've written up the pattern and I've included instructions for how to knit it out of one 400 meter skein, and then how to do this size, and then how to do a size slightly bigger than this, which should still be under 200 grams of fingering weight yarn. But to be honest, the pattern is so adaptable. You can literally knit as many sections of the main body as you'd like, and as many sections of the edging as you'd like. It really makes absolutely no difference. You don't have to use the exact repeat counts that are in the pattern. It is that adaptable. You can do what you like. Those, and I've written this in the pattern as well, that the repeats and the guidelines given for the sizing are purely guidelines, and you can do what you want with it. It is that adaptable. And as I've talked about the design process before, I went for a simple sort of eyelet section at the top and a slightly lacier section at the bottom. And I showed you my swatches for how I just came up with this sort of combination. So you can see on this side, there's sort of garter bumps just above and below that sort of frame these eyelet rows. It's not very clear on this side. I'm not sure how well you can see that, but it frames the eyelet rows. But then on the wrong side, that garter bump comes in the middle of the drop stitch rows. I'm not sure how well you can see that on this. It's really obvious in person, but it's harder to see on camera, I think. But I think either way looks beautiful. So really isn't a right or wrong way. You can wear it over your shoulders, kind of like a traditional shawl if you'd like. This size is plenty long enough to cover your arms and your back, which is what she wanted. She wanted something that on the wedding day she could wear to cover her arms and shoulders. And then it's nice and long and flowy. But you can also wear it the more modern way, I guess, sort of bandana style, around your neck, which is pretty much how I usually wear my shawls, and probably how she'll wear it after the wedding as well. Yeah, so and I've decided to name this. I've named it the Sugar Plum Shawl. I was sort of toying between a couple of names and settled on Sugar Plum because of the colour, and because it's quite a sugary sweet sort of pink colour, and Plum because my sister-in-law, her name is Vicky, and she's often called Plum as a nickname by her mum. Plum referring to Victoria plums, which is a kind of plum fruit. So she's often referred to or nicknamed Plum. So I thought Sugar Plum, so it all works pretty nicely and is relevant because I designed this for her and with her in mind. So I thought it ought to have a name that referred to her. And yeah, and it was knit out of 3.75 millimeter. Yes, 3.75 millimeter US 5s. You could knit it out of 4 millimeters as well if your yarn's a little bit thicker. But really gauge isn't that important because the shawl's still going to turn out pretty big whether you use a 3.5, 3.75 or 4 millimeter needle. It really won't matter too much. It will make a difference, I will say, if you're knitting the smallest, like the single skein size. But again, like I said, you can adapt the pattern. So if you see you're running out of yarn, you can finish it sooner. So in that respect, it's not that big of a deal. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be back to you with whips. Alright, back now with works in progress. First up, some progress on my pinwheel scrap blanket, which is what I've decided to call the pattern. And I have added one more square since the last time I spoke to you, since last week. I added this one square, and I did actually film a tutorial. I filmed a tutorial on how to finish the blocks, which is how to do the seam when you bind off and join it together at the same time. So this is all explained in the video. And then also I did a tutorial on how to join the blocks together using the crochet method that I've figured out for myself. And I looked up online and realized there are actually more official ways to join knitting together using crochet, but I tried a couple of them, and frankly they just felt super fiddly and really not easy or fun to knit. And the whole point of this blanket is to be easy and fun. So I filmed a tutorial for the method that I use. Like I said, for both of the things that I've done tutorials for, I do not claim to be the inventor of these methods. I do not doubt that someone else has come up with this method first. I just could not find another tutorial that showed it. That showed it, or even showed anything remotely close to what I was trying to show. So I just figured I filmed a couple of quick tutorials to show you guys how to do it, and hopefully that will be handy for you all as well. Those have now been edited and they are uploaded to YouTube, but they are unlisted, so you will not be able to see them yet. What I've done is the pattern is now out to testers, and so they can access the tutorials because I've got the links in the pattern that they have. So they can access those tutorials, and once they get back to me and the test knit is over and the pattern is ready to be released, then I will publish those videos for everybody. I mean, to be honest, they're not giving anything away. They are only covering those seaming techniques, so it's not like it's giving the pattern away or anything. But I just didn't want people to watch the videos and then for me to get inundated with messages asking where's the pattern. They can't find the pattern, but the pattern's not out yet. So I figured it makes sense to wait until the pattern is released officially before I publish those videos. But they have been made. And so for now, I think that will be the only type of tutorial I do for that blanket. I'm not going to do a step-by-step all the way through tutorial, because to be honest, I spent a lot of time writing up this pattern and it is very detailed and it goes into a lot of information on materials, substitutions, and the actual pattern itself is so simple. I really don't think you need a step-by-step, hold your hand through the whole process kind of tutorial. But if I do decide to do one, it won't be until later this year. So yeah, design is coming soon. Like I mentioned, it's out to test knitters. And I've given them 2 weeks. So I've given them until the 28th of June. And my idea being that it'll be released at the end of the month. But, and I also want to be nice and let testers have enough time to do it. And they don't have to do much, to be honest. Only 2 blocks that I need them to do, and then to see the blocks together to just try out all the techniques in the pattern and make sure it all works. But depending on how they do, and if the majority get back to me sooner than that, then I probably will release the pattern earlier. But yeah, I guess we will just see how it goes. And if I can release it sooner, I will. Okay, and I haven't made any progress on my other scrap blanket yet. I will be probably making more of an effort to work on that for the rest of this month, because the whole point of this pinwheel scrap blanket was for it to be a travel project as well as an everyday project. But that's the whole point, that it's so simple to just have in your bag, or when you're traveling, you can do a couple of squares, a couple of blocks, and you get to work on your scrap blanket without having to lug the whole thing around with you. Next up, we have my cardigan, the soubrette cardigan, which is, I can't remember the designer's name. It is Mary. I think it's Mary. Yeah, Mary Annarella. This is what the cardigan looks like. It's a really nice, little, elegant, flowy cardigan. And let me just find the picture. Quite frankly, my cardigan is at a point where it looks like a bit of a mess. You're not really going to be able to tell much from it. I am knitting it out of Drops Lace, which is a baby alpaca silk blend, Drops Lace, and it is a 70% alpaca, 30% silk, and it's in this just medium sort of grey colour. I think it's colour number 0501. This is where I'm at. Like I said, it doesn't look like much, but it's getting there. So this is actually the top. So this is the back of the neck, the 2 holes for the sleeves. And then I've got, this is the left front, and then I've got the right front. And like I said, because this means absolutely nothing to you guys and is really difficult to figure out what I'm on about, I'm going to put this away and show you in some photos. I got a lot further on this actually this week than I had intended. So I thought that if I'd been able to get to this stage of the pattern by this week, I'd have been happy. But I actually got to this stage. So I did the 2 fronts, and I actually made my front pieces longer. The pattern gives it a lot of detail on how you can make the garment longer. So that's where I'm at. And so the next step, which is what I've just done, which is picking up stitches and joining all this section. So you're going to have a lot of stitches, over 300 stitches in lace weight on the needles at the moment, and almost 400 stitches actually. So you just work this way now, back and forth, and then you create, there's some hip shaping and some other sort of shaping, and that, so you'll end up with something that looks like that at the end of it. Obviously I'll still need to go back and do the sleeves. I haven't done sleeves yet, but my aim at the moment is to get the body finished by the end of the month. If I can get the body finished by the end of June, then I'll be really happy, and I'll be on track to have the cardigan finished before I go back to the UK, which was my aim. I always knew this was never going to be a 1-month project. As much as I try to have things off the needles by the end of the month, this is the lace weight garment in stockinette. The sleeves will fly because it will just be knitting in the round, which is much easier and quicker for me than stockinette back and forth. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that section actually. I'm actually looking forward to sleeves. What I might do is get halfway through the body, and then if I need to take a break and work on some sleeves, and then come back to it. But we'll see how we go. Next up, I have a pair of socks. And this has got to be like the longest running pair of socks. They've been on the needles for over 2 weeks now, and it feels like forever ago that I started these. These are a pair of cobblestone socks out of Socks That Rock Lightweight. Really haven't made that much more progress on them. Last time I showed you, I just passed the heel. I've just done a few more repeats of the pattern on the foot. I'm about halfway down the foot. I probably have a bit more to go. Actually, not that far. Probably only have a couple more inches to go, a few more inches to go before I start the heel. But this is what they look like, and this is in the colorway Crazy Lace Agate. Socks That Rock is a 100% superwash merino, super high twist yarn. Yeah, knitting these on my 2.25mm high sharps, and the Cobblestones pattern is one of my patterns from the Beyond Vanilla Socks collection, which is part 1, which is now available. So that's that. I'm hoping to have these finished up pretty soon. I don't like leaving things on the needles for that long, especially when it's just a pair of socks. But I've been itching to cast on something new. So that's what I did. I cast on something new. And this, if you recognise the bag, I showed it to you earlier in the month. This is a Daybreak. So this is the Daybreak pattern by Stephen West. Picture of it there. And I am knitting it out of some Baby Long Legs semi-precious. So this is 50% silk, 50% superwash merino in the Raspberries and Cream colorway, and some I Heart BFL by Palouse Yarn Company in Blue Lagoon. So this is the Baby Long Legs yarn. It's really bright sort of magenta fuchsia colour. And this is the Palouse Yarn Company Blue Canyon. It's a really interesting mix of fibres because, sorry, I shook the table. This is a BFL nylon and this is a superwash merino silk. So it's actually very different feels, but I love the colours together, and I think the combination of textures would make an interesting shawl. And this is where I'm currently at. So I've done the plain section at the top, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Daybreak pattern by Stephen West, and I've just done that first stripe section, the very first stripe, with the blue. So I really like these two colours together. This is a shawl for a friend of mine. I'm knitting this out of 3.75mm needles, although the pattern calls for 3.5. I like my gauge at 3.75, so that's what I'm doing. And that's pretty much it. That's my progress so far. So I'm into section 2 of the pattern. And yeah, I hope to have this finished up pretty soon as well, because I have a bunch of things now that I need to get started on pretty soon. And this is a good segue into acquisitions. Just get everything back in my project bag so I don't lose anything. Right, so that was all my works in progress. And yeah, let's move on to acquisitions. So I know that I've been hinting quite a bit lately about the last few months, about working on a design collaboration and not being able to talk about it, not being able to show the designs, but I've dropped hints here and there that I am working on something. Well, finally, I've been working on the designs, and because I'm trying to figure out how to start this. So I'm working on a collection of patterns for the lovely ladies at Post Stitch. And so, Hugo's come to say hi. And for those of you who don't know, Post Stitch is a monthly subscription service where you get a box with everything you need to knit a project. So you get a printed copy of the pattern, you get all the yarn that you'll need, and needles, notions, stitch markers, and everything else that you need, plus some other goodies that will come in each box. And it arrives on your doorstep every month, and you have everything in that box for knitting the pattern. And they have 2 subscription box options at the moment. There's a sock box and a big stitch box, and the big stitch box is usually a shawl. So that's kind of their subscription set and how that works. And I'll leave a link in the show notes and on the episode thread to their website, so you can go check it out and see for yourself. But I met the lovely ladies of Post Stitch, Megan and Amy, at Vogue Knitting Live this year. And they were so lovely and so sweet, and I really enjoyed chatting with them and spent a couple of nights, the 2 nights of the event after everything had finished up and everything. I'd caught up with the ladies in the hotel lobby to knit for a bit, because Perry usually got back quite late, so I had a couple of hours to hang out with them. And it was during one of those late night knitting sessions in the hotel lobby that Amy very kindly asked if I would be interested in designing some patterns for them. And I of course said yes, I'd love to. And so I've been secretly scheming away and having some ideas and designing some stuff up for that. And I'm actually really excited about this collection, because it's an idea that I've had for these designs for a while now, and finally gotten around to making them reality. And I've knit the first version of all of these patterns, and I've made some modifications to them as well, having knit the first versions, which is kind of why I like to do that. And I knit those out of my own yarns, whilst the ladies were trying to sort out yarn support for the month that I will be doing. And I didn't mention this. My patterns will be released as part of the September subscription box club thing. Yes, it's on September. And so yarn support came from the wonderful Richard de Vries. The yarns of Richard de Vries. Really, really fun colours. So I'll explain what everything is. So I actually got 2 skeins of this one. One is already caked up. Going to be cast on very soon. So this is his 100% superwash merino worsted weight. And I can't remember what the base was called. It just says 100% merino worsted. And this is in the Sonora colorway. Which I really love this beautiful speckled oranges and browns and tans and yellows. It's just really, really nice, really beautiful. This is going to be really something nice and squishy. But what was I going to say? Can't remember now. And then these 2 are going to go together. And it's interesting, for the next 2, I picked out the main colour. This one is a variegated. So he's got 3 options in terms of his yarn, in terms of colourways. he has variegated, speckled, and tonal. So this one was one of his speckled colours. Beautiful. This is one of his variegated. And this one is called Winter Green. And this is on the Pepino base. It's really beautiful, high twist, 100% superwash merino. And I picked this one, and this is going to be for a sock pattern. And so because they only come in 60 gram put-ups, I believe it's 65 grams, which is 206 meters in each skein. So I said to the ladies, I was like, well, we could either do 2 skeins of the same color or get a coordinating or contrasting color to go for cuffs, heels, and toes. But because of the way the website was laid out, it wasn't very easy for me to see side by side the color that I picked for the variegated against the tonals to see what would go with it. And so what I said to the ladies was, well, I want this color for the variegated, but I'll leave it up to Richard to pick a matching or a contrasting color to go with it for cuffs, heels, and toes. So he picked this colorway. This is his sophisticated colorway, also on Pepino. It's from his tonals range. So I picked this and he picked this to go together. So I thought that was quite fun. And it probably wouldn't have been a color I would have picked, but I quite like how that's going to look, and it'll be an interesting combination for this one. I believe, if I remember correctly, that Richard is bringing out a sock base, so a nylon content yarn for his range of bases. So I believe that will be the yarn that will be in the actual boxes, not this one for the socks. But this is the one that I was sent to get the samples out of, which is really, really fun. And the colorways that I've received aren't necessarily going to be the colorways that are going to be in the box. The ladies haven't quite confirmed how that's going to work out yet, but these are just the ones that I picked for the designs. And then I picked out, and then one of the patterns obviously is going to be a shawl that I'm designing. This is also out of the Pepino base, and this is the colorway When I Think of You. It's really beautiful, speckled, sort of greens and purples with hints of yellow in there as well. It's just really nice, sort of, just really fun speckled colours. And I try to pick something a little bit different than what I normally go for, but I seem to have gone for a lot of green. And then again, Richard picked the coordinating colour to go with this, and he picked an amazingly bright and sunny yellow, which at first, I must admit, I was a little bit shocked and like sort of surprised by how bright this was compared to this. But the more I looked at it, the more it grew on me, and I actually think for the design, this is going to work as a really beautiful pop of colour against this more muted sort of speckled base. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this one knits up together. And in case you didn't know, Richard used to work for Koigu. Richard de Vries is a Canadian yarn company, or the yarns of Richard de Vries is a Canadian yarn company. And Richard de Vries used to work for Koigu, and you can totally tell in his colour sense and the way he dyes the Koigu influence and the similarities with Koigu. So that's really fun, really awesome to see. And I'm so excited to get started on those designs. I'll probably only be working on them one at a time. Go. Okay, he just wants to smell the yarn. I'll probably be working on them one at a time because, like I said, I can't show you the designs yet. So I don't want everything I'm working on to be a design project that I can't show you. So first up will be the worsted weight one, and then I'll start each of the others in turn, and probably still be working on some of them when I go to London, possibly. Hoping not, but we'll see. Yeah, and that pretty much covers it for acquisitions. I think that was everything I was going to talk to you about that. I'm trying to think now. I think that's pretty much everything. Well, that's definitely everything that came in the mail, but I wanted to make sure that was everything I wanted to talk about. I'm pretty sure. All right, so let's move on. So we have knit alongs and giveaway news. Nothing much this week, just a bit of a recap of what we've got going on. We have the Just Because giveaway that's going on in the group at the moment. And that's to win this skein of yarn by the lovely Cat from Cat's Kettle. It's the Bohemian Rhapsody colourway. Here comes Hugo again, being a bit of a menace, just his usual self. And no one wants to see your bum. Seriously, Hugo, why do you think everyone wants to see that bum? I know it's adorable and everything, but no one needs that. And then we have the sweater knit along going on at the moment. If you're knitting a sweater of any kind, oh, okay, no, you're not sleeping on that. A sweater of any kind or anything, make sure you just come and join in the group there. We have the Budding Bluebells Cal, which is running until the end of the month, so make sure you enter your finished objects into the FO thread, which is in Nicole's group, Nicole of Hiloko, and he's gone to sit in this box. The chatter thread is in my group, so I jump in, I answer questions and everything like that, and Nicole will be hosting the finished objects thread in her group, so make sure you check out those threads. All the info and the rules and everything are in the chatter thread. It's just settled in his box. We have boxes all over the house because those boys just absolutely adore them. And then we also have the Beyond Vanilla Socks knit along going on at the moment. That's running until the 27th of June. And again, I love seeing all the pictures popping up on Instagram and the finished objects that are showing up in the threads and the chatter in the threads. So make sure you come and join in. We have lots of fun prizes for that as well. Right, I'm just going to take a quick break and I'll be back with you in a second. With Q&A, questions and answers. So I've had quite a lot of questions pop in over this last week, so I'm only answering a couple today and I'll answer the rest next time. So first up is from Giddy Crafter Pauline, and she asks, I was wondering what your favourite meals are. Do you and Perry cook together, or are you the kitchen boss? When you go out for a meal, do you have a favourite restaurant? I'm not very adventurous in the kitchen and I'm always looking for new recipes. Okay, so answering the first question, I was wondering what your favourite meals are. Anything that involves pasta is always a win in this household. Sort of curries and sort of like stews with rice and things are always good. We love those. And something simple like just steak and veggies also goes down pretty well. And bolognese. Bolognese, well, my version of bolognese anyway, is always a favourite. Still comfort food, I guess, is always quite nice. Jacket potato, if we're busy or neither of us are really feeling up for cooking, a good jacket potato is always handy. As it happens, it takes Perry usually on a regular work day, not during Ramadan, but during a regular work week, it takes Perry about an hour and a half to get home in the evenings, which is the perfect amount of time for a jacket potato to cook in the oven. I find an hour sometimes, depending on how big the potato is, sometimes an hour isn't quite long enough and our oven isn't the best. So he lets me know when he's leaving work and I pop the potatoes in the oven, and by the time he gets home, they're ready and it's just a matter of assembling them with toppings and stuff. So that's always an easy one. But to be honest, we like a lot of things. So I think the problem is for us, sometimes we end up in a bit of a rut and just end up cooking the same dishes again and again. Do Perry and you cook together, or are you the kitchen boss? We do try to cook together. Sometimes that doesn't always work out very well because like one of us will say something and the other one will get annoyed at them. But it's usually me saying something to him. But when we do cook together, it's usually we divide tasks. So if he's doing the sauce, I'll do the rice or the pasta or whatever. So we'll split it up so that we're not getting in each other's way. We don't both cook the same elements of the dish. Like we're not both cooking the curry or we're not both cooking the bolognese. I might be cooking it, he might be chopping the vegetables or something like that. So we don't get each other under each other's feet. But to be honest, most of the time I do the cooking. again, during a regular work week, by the time Perry gets home, it's like 8 to 8:30 in the evening, and he just, well, for one thing, we're both starving by then, so waiting for him to come home and cook food just doesn't make sense. And I'm home all day, so realistically, I should cook the meals because I'm here, and it's easier for me to do it than it is for him. It's quite funny because when we first started going out, Perry did all the cooking. I really didn't cook at all. I didn't enjoy cooking, and I still don't really enjoy it that much. It's not something I get immense pleasure out of. But about a year before I learnt to knit, I really got into cooking because I had nothing else to do with my time. I would get home about an hour or so before Perry, so I had a lot more free time in the evenings. I'd try out new recipes and all things like that, and it was great. It was a lot of fun. It was very messy and involved a lot of cleaning up afterwards, but I was never that into it, not in the same way that I'm into like my knitting and sewing and stuff like that. So once I learnt to knit, cooking just went out the window, just couldn't be bothered anymore. I do try and cook. Like I say, we do cook, we do eat, and we've both been making more of an effort to cook together and cook better food and eat better overall, and try to have more salad and vegetables and stuff like that, all the usual things. And then when we go out for meals, do we have a favourite restaurant? Yeah, I'd say Wagamama's is definitely up there amongst the favourites of sort of like the regular chain style restaurants. Shake Shack opened up recently in Bahrain. It's actually next to Wagamama's at the mall. We haven't been there yet. Every time we've wanted to go or been tempted to go, the queue has been like out the door and round the corner. It's been crazy. It's really popular. Shake Shack is incredibly popular in the Middle East. There's like 3 of them in Dubai, and they're always really busy. Where else is popular that we like anyway? There's a steak place that we go to that's quite nice. I can't remember the name of it now, which doesn't really help. There was a really good pizza place that we found in an area known as Adlia. It's a really nice area. There's lots of like restaurants and shops and stuff, and it's quite a nice place to be outdoors when the weather's nice. And there's a couple of really nice restaurants around there. They're not big chain restaurants, so naming them wouldn't really help. But yeah, Wagamama's is definitely a favourite. Anywhere that does pasta is always good. And there's a really good pizza place that delivers, and their pizza is some of the best pizza I've ever had. It's like proper authentic Italian style pizza, and their focaccia is delicious. And it's really, really bad. They usually, whenever we've ordered from them, it's like shown up in less than 20 minutes, and it's always really good. But we've been trying not to order from them. We've actually been pretty good. We haven't ordered from them in a long time. But yeah, I think that covers all your questions. If you have any other questions, do let me know. The next set of questions came from Lady Katie 19X, that's Katie, and she's also asking about food. She's asking, what's food like in the Middle East? Do you and Perry stick with British food, or do you ever prepare any Middle Eastern dishes? Are Western chain restaurants around? And she also asks, is Disney popular in the Middle East? Well, Disney is very popular in the Middle East. I think Disney's just popular everywhere, to be honest. What's food like in the Middle East? It's basically like everywhere else. It's just, you get all the same foods. I can get all the same foods that I'm used to getting back home. It's just more variety from other cuisines, like Middle Eastern cuisines. A lot of sort of quote-unquote Middle Eastern style cuisines is mostly Lebanese or Levant type cuisine. It's a lot focused around kebabs and rice and things like that. I think someone asked me a question about traditional Bahraini food a couple of weeks ago, and I struggled to answer that because there doesn't seem to be a traditional dish. It's just very quintessential Middle Eastern style food, like kebabs, rice. There are some sort of stews and things like that, but nothing more exciting than probably what you already know about. Do me and Perry stick to traditional British foods, or do we prepare any Middle Eastern dishes? We pretty much eat everything. Yeah, we eat whatever. It's not really, we're not very specific in that. We're not very restricted in that respect. Are there Western chain restaurants around? Yeah, there's loads of them. Honestly, there's an area, and I've talked about this before on the podcast. There's an area it's actually near right next to the US naval base, and it's nicknamed American Alley because it's literally all the American chain restaurants that you can think of are along this road. Over here, the ones that I can remember off the top of my head that we have Shake Shack, Chili's, TGI Fridays, PF Chang's, obviously Starbucks. It's not really a restaurant. IHOP, Dunkin' Donuts. I think we have Dunkin' Donuts here. They definitely have it in Dubai. I'm blanking now. Johnny Rockets. There are a few others. There are loads. I'm just blanking at the moment. I can't remember all of them. But we see them all the time when we're at McDonald's, obviously, is everywhere. Burger King. Most things, to be honest. You can get most Hardee's. I've never actually had Hardee's. I've just seen it around. Yeah, there's loads of chain restaurants and sort of fast food places, American ones over here. Really, you can pretty much get most things in that respect. And the last question I'm going to answer this week really quickly is from Nell James 3373, and this is actually a knitting related question. So Nell asks, not sure if you've answered this question before, but could you recommend some cheap but still good quality yarn for jumpers? I've been wanting to make my first one for ages, but can't stretch to that quantity of the lovely yarns I see in many podcasts. Price is a main factor, but of course I still want the finished object to be soft, sturdy, presentable too. Do you have any suggestions for me? Yeah, I do. One second. Yep, I have two main suggestions for you. Now, you haven't really said what weight of yarn you're looking at, but the two companies that I can think of, and I would tell you off the top of my head, that do good quality yarn which make beautiful garments is Cascade Heritage, their fingering weight, and Cascade 220 for their DK worsted weight. Both make beautiful garments. I've used the 220, the worsted weight, which is really more of a DK. I knit a jumper for my dad last year, and he loves it. And the 220 is the fingering weight. I've not used it for garments, but it's definitely one that I think would work pretty well for a garment. So definitely check those out. And they're very affordable, sort of good price, and the dye lots seem to be, because it's quite commercially dyed, the dye lots seem to be quite close for the most part, and they have a huge range of colours. So it has colour options. You have a lot of choice with Cascade. And like I said, really quite affordable. And if you're looking to buy it online, and I know you're in Europe, so you can purchase it from loveKnitting.com, which is based out of the UK, but their shipping is really good. Their shipping prices are pretty good. So that's loveKnitting.com or .co.uk. Can't remember which now. And the other company I would suggest is Drops. Drops Yarns is really incredibly good value for money. As in, I wonder why it's so cheap, but it's really good. I've also knit a garment out of some Drops yarn. I used Drops Big Merino, which is their worsted weight. Really, really soft, bouncy, beautiful yarn to knit with. Really pleasant to knit with. And again, it's like something like £2.50 or £3 a ball. So it's really affordable. And it comes in 50 gram balls, but still, for that price, it's really affordable. And knits up into a really lovely garment as well. And they also have different weights. They have everything from worsted and bulky down to fingering. So, and I'm using their lace weight at the moment to knit my cardigan. So it's incredibly affordable in that respect. I mean, I think their lace weight when I bought it was something like £8 a skein. For £8 for 800 meters of yarn, it's really, really good price. So I definitely think out of all the companies that I can think of for sweater yarns to knit sweaters out of or garments out of, Drops is definitely one of the most affordable ones. I know many people have used the Drops Baby Alpaca Silk, which is a fingering / sport weight yarn for knitting the water lily top, which was very popular last year. And I've used that same base to knit my mum the ponchette garment that I made for her last year as well, and she loves that. So, and that's held up pretty well. So you just have, the only thing you have to take care of with the Drops yarns is some of them, the ones with alpaca and silk in them, aren't superwash. So that's the only thing to bear in mind as well. But yeah, I think those two companies are definitely worth checking out if price is a factor for you, but you still want good quality yarn. So my question for you guys this week: on the bandwagon of iced tea, I want to ask you guys for your favorite iced tea and iced coffee, because I'd like to try some iced coffee recipes. And specifically, I'm looking for recipes that are quite specific. I want actual measurements or ratios, something I can go off of. You know, I understand that a lot of it is quite subjective, but when you don't know what you're doing, being told, oh, a few bags and some water, leave it in the fridge or something, it gets a little bit like, well, how many tea bags do I put in for how much water? Like, what's the ratio? What should be the ratio? And what do you use to sweeten your tea with? Do you sweeten your iced tea, or do you drink it as it is? I'm trying to avoid adding sugar or artificial sweeteners to my drinks at the moment, and this is the whole point why I'm trying to do iced teas. I'm trying to get off of drinking things like Diet Coke and all of that. So I'm trying to stay with decaf, and I'm trying to stay off of adding sugar and sugary things to and especially artificial sweeteners. I bought some agave syrup to try, but I don't even know how much I've never used agave syrup before, and it's really expensive over here, which is why I've never bought it. But I thought I'd buy some and give it a go, but I don't know how much to use. I don't want to use too much and for it to be too sweet, and I don't want to, I'm just looking for a little bit of guidance, I guess, a bit of help. So anyone who has any tips or links to recipes that they really like, and specifically for iced coffee, I've seen such a vast range of different options for iced coffee. I like the idea of the cold brew method, kind of like with cold brewing tea. Just leave it in the fridge and let it brew overnight. But then I'm wondering about, do you just add regular milk or adding almond milk? And so yeah, I'm basically just looking for advice. The more specific you can be about it, the better, is basically what I'm trying to say. So if you do have anything you'd like to share in that regards, please feel free to send me links or send me recipes or whatever, and I'd be very much appreciated to try this out. And the second thing I had a question for you guys is a little bit random, a little bit out there, not really, is I have this bag of scraps, and this is the end of mini skeins. So this is what's left over after I've knit squares into my blankets or triangles into my pinwheel blanket. There is a bunch of ends in here, and they range anything from 1 gram to 4 grams, I think, but they're mostly around the 2 to 3 gram range in this bag. And I weighed the scraps before I put them in the bag. There's about 110 grams in here, so it's more than a skein of yarns worth of yarn in this bag, but obviously they're all in really tiny scraps. So if there's anyone out there who wants this bag of scraps, please let me know. What I'm going to say is just leave a comment in the episode thread if you want this bag of scraps, whether your scrap blanket takes only a couple of grams per square or per whatever hexagon, whatever you're doing, and you only need tiny amounts, or you want to knit a pair of scrappy socks, because this would be great for that too. Just leave me a comment in the episode thread to say that you would like the bag of scraps, and if there's only one person, then you get it. Otherwise, I will just draw from the names in the episode thread. What I'll do is I'll just pick out the names of the people who say they want bag of scraps, and next week on our podcast I'll just announce who gets them, or I might just message them directly and not announce on the podcast, and then I'll send it to you, and I'll probably add in a couple of other goodies as well. But yeah, this have just been sat in a little bag of scraps collecting on my desk, and it's been bugging me because I'm not planning on doing anything with them, but I feel really bad about throwing it away. So if there's someone out there who would make use of this, please let me know, and I'm happy to send it to you. Like I said, I cannot guarantee how much you have of each scrap, but they range anywhere from 1 to 4 grams. It's mostly all fingering weight. There is some pattern scroll in there, and some argue that's more like a sport weight, but otherwise it's all fingering weight. Some of them still have the little labels with them, so yeah, let me know. Like I said, just leave a comment, let me know you want this, and I will just do a random number generator next week, and I'll let you know if you want, or I'll probably post it in the thread who the winner is, so everyone can see. Alright, that was that. Moving on. Moving on to Middle East life, Bahrain and Middle East life. So with Ramadan here now, there were a few things I realised I wanted to mention, which I forgot to mention last time. like I said, Perry gets home a lot earlier. He gets home now during Ramadan between 4:30 and 5, which is so nice. It is so nice to have him home before it's dark outside and to just have an evening together. Like he gets home, we do a few things or whatever we need to get doing, and then we sit down, we have dinner at a normal earlier time than usual. And then we've watched something on TV, and then he's just like, oh, okay, so what time is it? Because usually by then we have to go to bed, but it's only like 8 o'clock. And we're like, wow, okay, we still have so much time. So it's really nice to just have that extra time in the evenings. And on that note, we went last Thursday, Perry and I went to the cinema. And we went out for dinner and stuff last week. And we went on Thursday night, because like I said, he gets home at 4:35, and we went out. And it was really, really nice, actually, just to go out in the evening and do something. Because, like I said, he always gets home too late to normally do that on a regular work week. And what that meant was we got to Saturday, and Saturday felt like a bonus day because the Thursday evening felt like the weekend. So we got to Friday, and Friday felt like Saturday, and then Saturday felt like it should have been a Sunday. So it was a total bonus. It extended our weekend by an evening, and that evening felt like an extra day. So we're totally doing that again this week. I'm all for an extended weekend. But yeah, so there's that. Then at the end of Ramadan is Eid. It's one of two main Eid celebrations on the Islamic calendar. Is the end of Ramadan, and then there's another one later on in the year. They're one of the two big Eid celebrations. And in Saudi Arabia, they usually get anywhere between 5 to 10 days off working days off work as public holiday. Perry's company last year, I think they had 5 or 6 days off, total working days off. So it was over a week off work, which is great. In Dubai, we only ever got a maximum of 3 days public holiday, depending on what day of the week it fell on. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to Eid. So having Perry at home for a week would be quite nice to just do things and get stuff done. We had thought about going away, but it's going to be really close to when we're going back to London for his sister's wedding, so it's probably not going to be the best timing-wise in that respect. The only other thing I have to say, the thing that I'm struggling with the most this Ramadan is I miss my morning coffee. I really miss having a coffee. I don't have a coffee every day. I never did, even before Ramadan. I never had a coffee every day. I may have had a coffee twice or maybe 3 times a week where I went out and got a latte as a treat. I'd have it once on the weekends, usually with Perry, or and then once, maybe twice if I was having a bad week during the week. I don't really drink coffee every day otherwise. And I do make coffee at home sometimes, but not very often. But I do miss that. I do miss being able to get up in the morning and going out to get a coffee as a treat for myself. So I do miss that. But that's it for this week. I didn't really prepare anything in terms of the Middle East segment for this week, so I'm really sorry about that. I will try and I did talk about the food and stuff in the question and answer section this week. But I do have some video clips that I recorded whilst I was driving around the other day. I went for a little drive, not in our neighbourhood, but in some neighbouring neighbourhoods, just close to where we live. It's all within about 10 minutes of our home, and it's through some of the more residential parts and some older villages of Bahrain, which have now sort of all accumulated and become part of what is now just one big city. But you'll get to see some of the older, more rundown, I guess, parts of Bahrain, and some of the more traditional style of housing. And there's a range that you'll see in this video, from so really old style to really more modern and the more lavish style housing. There's an interesting mix. So I hope you'll enjoy that. I will put it at the very end of this video because it will probably end up being quite a long clip, and I don't want to bore anybody who doesn't want to watch it. So it'll be at the end of the video if you're interested. So now I'm going to move on really quickly to my week in review. Don't have a lot to say this week, to be honest. I did take Derek back to the vets on Sunday and got him checked out. He still had a little mark on his lip. The swelling had all gone down, but it was still a slight pale patch on his lip, so I wasn't sure if that was okay or not. So I wanted to get him checked out anyway and just go for a follow-up. And the vet, as soon as she saw him, she was like, he's fine, he's perfect, he's all better. And I asked about the mark, and she said, oh, it's not a problem, it's just a scar. And it may or may not go away, but he's fine. The inflammation is gone, he's better. And I took Hugo in as well, just to make sure that, and I also wanted to get their weights checked. Derek has lost about 300 grams since the beginning of the year. And Hugo's actually put on 100 grams, which is very strange because Derek was always the heavier one, and now Hugo is heavier than Derek. But not by much, there's only a couple of 100 grams between them. But so that was all good. I'm really happy they're back on the wet food now. Although we're only giving it to them once a day at the moment. I didn't want to give it to them too much because I didn't want them to suddenly overdo it and throw up or anything, or for it to bother their systems again. But we figured out it's probably just plastic. We did have a couple of bowls that we were using for their dry food, which were plastic. We've replaced those now with metal ones, so all their bowls are metal or ceramic. So it's all good. And they are very happy about the fact that they are back on the wet food. I think that's pretty much it for this week. Thank you so much for joining me today, and see you next time. Happy knitting. Bye.